Enoch walked with God, and God took him. That means they were in agreement. In agreement. Do you not know that if you're not in agreement with Jesus Christ, when He comes to gather people up, He's going to leave you where? Behind. You're not going. He is not looking for people that are not in agreement with Him. I am more anxious about people getting right with God. He dealt with me the other day. I don't want a harlot. He doesn't want somebody that runs around on him many times. How many wants a man that runs around on you all the time? How many wants a woman like that? No, we don't want that. Absolutely wouldn't have one. You one time, we're done. And that's exactly what he is saying here. But Methuselah walked with God 365 years, and God took him. Why? Because he was in agreement with God. Do you not know that Cain was not in agreement with God? I bring him up a lot. And what did he do? Well, I don't agree with God, so I'm going to kill Abel, and God will have to take me anyway. He had to take me in my own thought. No, God sent Cain away. Did He not? Let's look further here. The Ark of the Covenant comes into the city. I got some scriptures here, so I don't forget this stuff. Comes into the city. Do you remember Michal was her name? I call her Michelle. But Michal is basically a more appropriate name to say her. But she liked David. But do you know that Michelle, which I'm going to say it that way, it's not how you say it, but I say Michelle. But Michelle was raised in a king's court. Did y'all remember Michelle? Saul's daughter. So what does Saul's daughter do? Saul was in agreement with David until David, who was a shepherd boy, was raw. You know, sometimes prissy people and raw people can't have a hard time hanging out. Don't they ever notice that? You ever seen that? You got the country girl, and then you got the girl that was raised in a palace someplace. They sometimes don't get along together. They can't. Two different thought patterns. One wants to go down and play in the mud and handle worms and fish. And the other one's like, I don't touch worms, I don't fish, and I'm never going to be hot and sweaty. That's not going to happen. Is that not right? And so they can't, they're not friends. It's not starting school. They are not friends. Why? Because they cannot walk together. They're in disagreement. And so Michelle disagreed, was okay with David, was okay to be the queen, until David starts dancing before the Lord with all of his might, threw his robe off, and became a common man. Michelle said, that's it. I'm not interested. And she says to him, you look like a fool dancing before the Lord today, like a total idiot. And the Bible says she never had children till she died. Because see, David was in agreement with God. But Michelle was not in agreement with David or God. Why? Because her dad was Saul. Are you with me? Saul was never in agreement with God. That's all Saul did, was fight God. He did things his way, his thought, his patterns. It's what he did. And God rejected him from being king and gave the kingdom to David. Now Solomon, let's go on. So David, and then has a son named Solomon. Do we believe that Solomon was in agreement with God? No. He wasn't to have Egyptian horses. He got them all. He wasn't to have all these wives that were heathens. He got them all. 1,000 of them. 700 wives, 300 concubines. You talk about sinning. He didn't sin one time. He sins over and over and over again. He builds his house bigger than the house of God. So all these things in total disagreement with God. Now let's move on. And it says here, do not be unequally yoked with unbelievers. For what fellowship has righteousness with lawlessness? What communion has light with darkness? And it says, and what agreement has the temple of God with idols? For you are the temple of the living God. As God has said, I'll dwell in them, walk among them, I'll be their God, they shall be my people. So what this does, is we see this has been a pattern since the beginning of time. So what the Lord, I was praying to the Lord about is why so many people having family problems? Why are so many people fighting constantly all the time? You can't even watch them in the store. On Facebook they're fighting. They're now having wars on Twitter. The Democrats constantly fighting with the Republicans. The liberals fighting with the conservatives. It doesn't end. Never in any agreement. And what does he say? Two cannot walk together lest they be in agreement. You know, there was a lot of differences of opinion when the country started. But do you know that when this country started, they were in agreement on one thing? That was Jesus Christ. Did you all know this? That was their agreement. And what the Lord dealt with me on, and I don't know if He's going to give me more on this, was the Plymouth Rock. I'd never even studied this, didn't even know what He's talking about, honestly. Plymouth Rock, what's that? So I had to go research it. And this nation is just like the Plymouth Rock. The rock was solid, it was split in two. One thing goes here and another part of it goes there. You can go visit it to this very day. But what you don't know is pieces of that rock was chipped off and kept as souvenirs. And this country is a picture of that rock. That rock is fractured. It is split in two. It's got shavings and everything split all over the place. And we are exactly like that rock. We fight so much because we cannot agree on the least of things. You've got the majority of the country no longer believes there's a God. You got the majority of the country that all kinds of immorality is acceptable, completely against God and what He says. These are the things that are causing us problems in our life. It's causing us problems in our family. The husbands and wife cannot walk together anymore because they can't agree on a thing. Have you all noticed this? They can agree on absolutely nothing. I have never seen, and then they get married. I've married people I knew was going to get divorced. I've had preachers say, well, I wouldn't have married them. What's it matter? Somebody else will. Never in agreement. You cannot walk together with God if you're not in agreement with Him. You can't walk together with your husband if you're not in agreement with Him. Or your wife. You have to come to terms. You need to walk together. We major on little minor things. Well, she likes Pepsi and I like Coke, so I don't know what we're going to do. I've seen people fighting over this kind of dumb stuff. I've seen families get divorced because one decides that they want to live like the devil and the other one says, well, I want to stay here and serve God. Not walking together. If you watch your TV shows, most of you don't know military stuff, but I will tell you that the first thing that the military does is a tactic called divide and conquer. See, this nation is getting divided and is getting conquered by the devil because we're not in agreement. Used to, I will tell you this, that we had a lot of disagreements as human beings. We might disagree on how we're going to plant our fields. We might disagree on how we're going to do this. We might disagree on the type of clothing we wore. I mean, you can study your history on this. Some people dress like this, some people dress like the other. When the Mayflower came over, there was two religious groups on there. The Puritans and then the other religious group. And this group didn't agree with this group, but they did agree on this, that Jesus Christ is the King of Kings and Lord of Lords and the Savior of the whole earth. And so God blessed us. But now we are in disagreement and not walking together and fighting over everything. Everything. Is it not true? That's all it is. I don't want to make you mad, but I am sick of the news. I don't even watch regular news. They're totally disagree with everything. They're against everybody and everyone. I don't care what news station. I don't care what it is. I don't care if it's Fox. I don't care if it's CNN. I don't care if it's ABC. I don't care if it's CBS, NBC. It doesn't matter. CNN. Watched it the other day. They don't walk together, do they? This nation is no longer walking together. Now, what happens when a nation can't walk together? We're going to get ripped to pieces. We at least had a common thread at one time. A common thread. Does anybody remember the stats in the 70s about how many people claimed to be Christian? It was like 98%, even then. Today, there is no agreement. So sometimes, church, we have to stop fighting. You can fight amongst yourselves if you want. But one thing I'm begging you, and I beg the whole world and whoever hears this, to stop fighting against your Lord. Stop it. Do you not know that when the time of Noah came around, what did it say? That every man did what was right in his what? Own eyes. They weren't agreed with God. They made their own gods and did what they wanted. And expected God to accept that. He won't. He'll start over. Do you not know he told Moses, Moses, stand out of the way. I'm going to kill these people and I'm going to build a nation from you alone. And Moses interceded. He interceded. The people were still in agreement with Egypt. Now they came out of Egypt, but they were still in agreement with Egypt. We want the things of God, but we agree with the things of Egypt. I tell you right now, the blessings we are living in is because of our fathers and our mothers. The good food you eat, the good houses you live in. I don't care if you live in a teeniest apartment in this town, you live better than 80% of the world. But the blessings of our grandparents are going to come to an end. Because our grandparents were in agreement with God. Now we're disagreeing with God. We disagree with our husbands and wives. We disagree with everything. There's nothing we're in agreement on. You're not ever going to agree. My wife's a vegan. I'm a meat and potatoes guy. But one thing we're agreed on is Jesus. So no matter what the world is doing and how dysfunctional they are, let us be in agreement with Him so we can walk with Him.